She had never imagined her life would end up on an alien warship, wrapped in ceremonial silk that shimmered like a caged sunrise, waiting for doors to open and reveal the prince she had been forced to marry. Alina Ward had grown up believing humanity's expansion into the neighboring sectors would bring prosperity, not political bargains traded like livestock between species desperate for alliances. Yet here she was, 29 years old, a linguist, a diplomat in training, now a treaty-offering bride, being presented to the Thalkor Dominion like a glossy ornament meant to soothe ancient grudges. She could taste metal in the aerozone from the ship's shield engines humming around her, a reminder that, even now, while she stood trembling in the awaiting chamber, the Thalkor were preparing for war. Her marriage was supposed to stop that war. Her marriage was supposed to keep humanity alive. But all she could think about was the man she had left behind, the one she had rejected only 2 months ago when this arrangement was announced. Jackson Hale, human, brutally strong, fiercely loyal, and the only person who ever made her feel like the universe wasn't so terrifyingly large. She had broken his heart to save her people, and she would soon learn that no alien empire, not even one as vast as the Thalkor, feared anything the way they feared a hurt. Determined human. The doors finally hissed open with a rush of cold aromatic air, carrying the scent of fractured starlight, the strange mineral-like fragrance the Thalkor exuded naturally. 2 towering guards stepped inside, their bluish obsidian skin shimmering with tiny motes of embedded bioluminescence, patterns shifting like constellations. They bowed their horned heads to her, silent as carved statues. One gestured, "The prince awaits." Alina swallowed hard, steeling her spine. She had spent years training to negotiate peace in hostile environments, learning the nuance of alien cultures, mastering languages that twisted her throat and reshaped her vowels. But nothing could prepare her for becoming the bridge between 2 species, literally, legally, painfully. As she stepped through the massive archway, the world around her expanded into a cathedral-like hall of crystalline pillars, each humming with a harmonic resonance she could feel in her bones. The Thalkor mothership was an architectural marvel, living mineral, grown in orbit over centuries. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, as if the ship were breathing. At the far end of the hall stood Prince Karis. He was nothing like she had imagined. Taller than the guards, his skin a deeper midnight blue, traced with golden glowing lines like cracked magma light beneath stone. His eyes, bright amber with vertical pupils, watched her with an unreadable expression, part curiosity, part wariness, part something she dared not name. His hair fell in thick, shimmering strands like metallic fiber, braided loosely over one shoulder. Draped in regal armor that looked grown, not forged, he radiated the calm power of someone bred from birth to command. When he spoke, his voice thrummed like a bass note in her chest. "Alina Ward of Earth," he said, "human diplomat, treaty bride, you step into this union for the sake of peace between our peoples." His gaze softened almost imperceptibly. "Know that I did not choose this either." She flinched not at his tone, but the honesty within it. "Then we will endure it together," she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. A slow nod. "Then let the binding begin." The ceremony itself was quick, almost startlingly so. No vows, no rings, no human romantic fiction. Instead, a shared pulse of bioluminescent energy transferred between their palms as their hands touched a soft, tingling sensation that spread through her like warm electricity. The Thalkor didn't believe in words for commitment. They believed in resonance. The moment their energies aligned, a soft gold ripple flowed through the hall, marking the official sealing. It was done. She was married to an alien prince. Armor-laden attendants bowed. Engineers hummed vibrations of approval through the ship's living walls. Alina simply stood there, trying to breathe, feeling the strange warmth still lingering across her palm. Prince Karis inhaled once, sharply, as if the binding affected him too. Then he gestured gently. "Walk with me." He led her through the ship, explaining her new role. She was to be both wife and bridge, advisor and representative, symbol and strategic partner. The Dominion had begun losing territory to a rising threat, a ruthless faction known as the Feral Clades, violent breakaways from the Thalkor who despised the idea of allying with flesh-weak humans. Alina listened, absorbing details, recognizing political currents beneath each word. It was only when they reached the observation deck that she truly understood the stakes. The viewport stretched like a transparent canyon ahead of them, revealing a nebula swirling in violet firelight, dozens of warships lurking at its edges. Enemy ships, They came faster than expected, Karis murmured. Our intelligence underestimated their recruitment. They take in anything strong enough to fight. Exiles, rogues, mercenaries. His amber gaze flicked to her. And humans, she blinked. Humans. But humanity has begun to fracture, he said. Not your governance, but your people. Freelancers, outcasts, soldiers of fortune. Those who crave battle over unity. Something cold pooled in her stomach. Why would humans join them? For power, for survival, for vengeance. He paused, or for heartbreak. Her breath hitched. A memory crashed into her. The look on Jackson's face the day she told him she was accepting the treaty marriage. He had been furious, devastated. And more than that, something in him had broken. Jackson Hale was not a man who handled helplessness well. He was a soldier, a protector, a man who believed love was something you fought for, not surrendered. You don't think? She whispered. That someone I knew, someone human, would actually join them. Karis tilted his head. The Clades have acquired a new strategist, a human, remarkably skilled, dangerous. He stepped closer, golden light threading beneath his skin. And he knows you. Her blood turned to ice. What's his name? Karis didn't hesitate. Jackson Hale. The world swayed. She caught herself on the railing. Jackson, the man she rejected to secure peace, was now joining the very faction threatening to annihilate that peace. It didn't seem possible. Jackson had been stubborn, reckless, loyal, angry, but he wasn't a traitor. He wasn't someone who would threaten entire civilizations, unless he didn't see it that way, unless he only saw her, and what he had lost. As panic rippled through her, the lights overhead shifted to an urgent crimson pulse. An alarm blared across the ship, deep, resonant, undeniable. Karis snapped his attention to the nearest console. They're here. The Clade fleet is moving in formation. They intend to breach the perimeter. His gaze flicked to Alina. This attack is coordinated, too precise. Your human strategist is guiding them. Alina forced air into her lungs. Then we stop him. Karis gave her a long, unreadable look. You speak as if you know him. I do. Pain seared through her chest. And if he's doing this, I have to try to reach him. The prince studied her, a woman he barely knew, the stranger he had just been bound to. Something softened in his features. Admiration, respect, or perhaps, he simply recognized what the loss of a bond could do to any species. You will not face him alone, he said quietly. You are my mate now. My ally. My responsibility. She flinched at the word mate, but his tone held no ownership, only duty. Come, he ordered gently. We go to the command deck. The corridors vibrated with the energy of mobilizing forces. Warriors sprinted past them, armor plates glowing brighter as adrenaline triggered their bioluminescent channels. Tactical interfaces flickered to life along the walls, projecting star maps and potential assault vectors. The hum of engines deepened as the ship prepared to maneuver. Elena stayed close to Karis, her pulse thundering. The command deck erupted into controlled chaos the moment they entered. Officers barked coordinates in the Thalkor's multitonal language. Gravity stabilizers flickered as the ship shifted to combat stance. Karis took his position on the central command dais, authority radiating from him. Elena hovered near the edge, absorbing every detail. A holodisplay brightened before them, revealing the enemy fleet's sleek dark ships with jagged exoskeletal hulls and crimson-lit cores, the feral Clades, and at the front, a ship unlike the others, smaller, lighter, clearly human manufactured. Her heart seized. Jackson, his ship broadcast a message directly toward the Dominion flagship. Incoming communication, an officer announced. Karis hesitated only a moment. Put it through. The holo flickered and Jackson Hale appeared, older by stress, harder around the edges. His black hair clipped shorter than she remembered, eyes more feral and burning with something dangerously close to purpose. He was armored in a hybrid suit, human plating, mixed with alien tech-like bones fused with metal. When he saw Alina standing beside Karis, something in his jaw clenched. Then he smiled, sad, furious, heartbreak-forged smile. Alina, he said softly. So it's true. Her throat tightened. Jackson, what are you doing? What I have to, he answered. What your people wouldn't. What you wouldn't. His gaze darted to Karis with disdain. You chose them over us. So now I choose my own path. Karis stepped slightly in front of her. Protective. Human Hale, he said coolly. Your actions will lead to war. War is already here, Jackson snapped. You just didn't want to see it. His eyes softened as they met Elena's again. I wanted to stop this. I wanted to be enough, but you gave yourself to them. She swallowed hard. For peace, Jackson, his voice cracked. For peace, or because you didn't believe in us. The words struck like a blade. Before she could respond, alarms flared again, enemy ships moving. Jackson's expression hardened. It's too late now. Stand down, Alina. Leave with me, before this gets worse. Karis growled low. She will not go with you. I wasn't asking you. Jackson's eyes locked onto hers, pleading. Alina, her heart shattered, but her voice stayed steady. I can't. Jackson closed his eyes. Pain rippled across his features. When he opened them, they were cold. Then you've chosen your side. The transmission cut. The moment it vanished, the Clade fleet surged forward. A wave of energy crackled across the stars as the first barrage launched. The war for peace and for her had begun, and somewhere beyond the viewport, the man she once loved had become the greatest threat the Tholkor had ever faced. And humanity's fiercest weapon, the first blast, struck the Dominion flagship with the force of a collapsing star, shuddering through the living hull and sending a ripple of compressed energy along the crystalline pillars. Alina staggered, clutching the railing as the deck trembled beneath her boots. The ship groaned not like metal, but like something alive enduring a wound. Across the command deck, officers barked layered commands, their voices weaving in overlapping tonal harmonies that indicated urgency and controlled fear. Prince Karis's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Brace for second impact. Shields at 80%. Redirect power to the forward matrix. His glowing skin flared brighter, bioluminescent channels pulsing with instinctive authority that rallied his crew. Through the massive viewport, Alina saw the attacking fleet sweep in formation, hundreds of jagged ships, moving with chilling precision under a strategist who understood human unpredictability and Tholkor discipline in equal measure. Jackson's smaller vessel broke formation, weaving between enemy cruisers, signaling targeted aggression as if daring Karis's flagship to pursue. Her heart twisted. Jackson wasn't simply here to fight, he was here to provoke, to force confrontation, to force her to face him. Another blast shook the deck, sparks raining from an overloaded console. A warrior slammed their hand against a control node, stabilizing failing circuits with a surge of their own bioluminescent energy. Alina hadn't even known Thalkor could interface with their ships like that, through living contact, through a feedback loop of instinct and command. Humanity had machines, the Thalkor had symbiosis. Karis turned to her, his amber eyes fierce. Your strategist knows our weaknesses. Your strategist knows me. Alina winced at the accusation, but didn't deny it, because it was true. Jackson had trained alongside Thalkor diplomats during an early exchange program, studying their combat patterns, understanding their cultural instincts. He knew their attack trajectories, their optimal shield timings, the rhythm of their and now, he was using that knowledge to dismantle them. He's not like this, she whispered, though the words tasted like lies. Something changed. Karis stepped closer, gripping the railing. People change in war. Sometimes they become weapons. His gaze softened. He is trying to become yours. Before she could respond, a deafening alarm blared a deeper, more urgent tone than before. A tactical officer shouted, "Enemy boarding pods launched." Elena's stomach turned. The Clade fleet wasn't just assaulting them from the outside. Jackson was trying to get inside. And she knew, with chilling certainty, who he was coming for. Karis snarled a command in his native dialect, and the walls pulsed in response, sealing vulnerable corridors, redirecting internal power, adjusting defensive drone routes. The ship felt alive around them, shifting like a massive, protective organism. But the enemy pods were fast too fast and they pierced the outer hull. With incendiary claws that melted through biocrystal-like acid, the deck lurched again as impact reverberated through the structure. "We need to move," Karis ordered, securing a slim crystalline blade to his hip and guiding her toward a reinforced exit. Alina followed, breath tight, thoughts spiraling. Jackson was somewhere out there with soldiers who would kill her husband on sight, who would tear apart the Dominion's command hierarchy just to destabilize the alliance. And she was caught between them, between the man she once loved and the people she now vowed to protect. The corridors became a blur of flickering lights and rushing warriors. Tholkor soldiers stood rigid, armored plates glowing brighter as they braced for close combat. Their breathing deepened into a rhythmic, vibrating growl, a natural battle state that amplified their strength. Alina felt like a fragile creature among giants, yet Karis stayed close, always half a step ahead or at her side. Every time the ship shuddered, he steadied her without hesitation. The first breach hit somewhere behind them, distant metal shrieks, followed by the guttural roars of the feral clades. They weren't like the regal Thor. Their skin was darker, coarse, with jagged bioluminescent scars carved intentionally in chaotic patterns. They were cultists of conflict, believers in strength, marked by their history of exile, and Jackson had chosen them. Or maybe they had chosen him. A Dominion warrior sprinted toward Karis, breath ragged. "My prince, the Clades breached Sector 5. They're advancing fast. Their leader is with them." Elena froze. Jackson Karis didn't flinch. "Hold your ground. Delay them. Do not engage the human directly." His voice dipped into a low, resonant frequency, authority, woven with a warning. "He does not fight like us." Elena swallowed. No, Jackson didn't fight like anyone. He fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. Karis guided her through a narrowing corridor that opened into a chamber she recognized immediately, the resonance nexus, the heart of the ship's neural system. Crystalline structures curved upward like ribs around a massive glowing core, pulsing with golden blue threads of energy. "Why here?" she asked. Karis motioned for the doors to seal behind them. "The nexus controls our internal defenses. If the Clades reach it, they can disable the entire ship from within." "Then why bring me?" His jaw tightened. "Because the human is coming here." Realization hit her like a slap. "You think I'm the leverage." "I know you are," he said quietly. The ship's hum intensified, vibrating through the chamber as defensive protocols activated. Karis moved to the central control node, placing his hand on a crystalline surface where his bioluminescent patterns flared and sank into the ship, syncing with its neural lattice. "I will fortify all access routes," he murmured, "but you must stay behind me, no matter what happens." Elena stared at him, this alien prince she had been forced to marry, who had every reason to resent her, yet didn't. Karis looked over his shoulder, his expression unexpectedly soft. "He comes for you, Elena, not for me, not for war, for you." She closed her eyes, pain tightening her chest. "I never wanted this." "Neither did I," he said gently. The first explosion hit just outside the nexus. Elena flinched. Karis drew his blade, the biocrystal edge humming with lethal charge. Another blast shook the door closer, this time, echoing through the chamber like thunder. The locks glowed, straining under pressure. A final strike splintered the barrier inward, and smoke billowed as silhouettes stepped through. The first Clade warrior lunged. Karis met him with a single sweeping strike that severed armor and bioluminescent sinew, sending the attacker crashing across the chamber. More followed, snarling, bioluminescent scars flashing violently. Elena pressed herself against the far wall, heart hammering as alien warriors clashed in a blur of shimmering blades and harsh guttural roars. Karis fought like a force of nature, precise, controlled, devastating. Every strike calculated, every movement an extension of the ship's rhythm. But the Clades were relentless, driven by fanaticism and emboldened by their human commander. A warrior nearly breached Karis's defense, swinging a jagged plasmi axe toward Elena, only for Karis to intercept it with a violent upward strike that sent the attacker sprawling, glowing blood scattering across the crystalline floor. And then heavy, cold silence. Karis froze, shoulders tensing, because the silhouette entering now wasn't Thalkor at all. It was human. Jackson Hale stepped through the smoke, armored in that hybrid exosuit that fused alien bone-like plating with human tactical design. His visor retracted, revealing eyes burning with purpose and hurt. Elena's throat constricted. "Jackson." His gaze locked onto her, softening for an instant. "Thank the stars you're alive." He looked exhausted, haunted, but alive. Then his eyes flicked to Karis, hardening into something sharp. "Step aside." Prince Karis's blade hummed dangerously. "She is under my protection. She was mine before she was ever yours," Jackson snapped. "And she never chose you." Elena stepped forward instinctively. "Jackson, stop. This isn't the way, isn't it?" His voice cracked. "Elena, they're using you as a symbol, just like they used you as a bargaining chip. You think this marriage will stop war? It won't. It only paints a target on your back." Karis growled, golden light blazing under his skin. "You are manipulating her. I'm trying to save her." Jackson shouted. "From a future she didn't choose. From a people who only want her as leverage." Karis stepped between them, his voice cold and deadly. "From what I can see, the only threat to her is you." Jackson's face twisted. I came here to get her out. You came here to destroy my ship, because your ship is the symbol of everything wrong with this alliance." Jackson roared. "They forced her into this. They forced me out of her life. And you," his gaze sharpened, venomous, "you think binding her makes her yours. The binding is not ownership," Karis snapped. "It is responsibility." "Exactly," Jackson whispered. "And you have no idea how to protect her." The air tightened between them like a drawn bowstring. Alina felt the weight of two worlds, two men pressing against her ribs like a vice. "Jackson," she whispered, desperate, "please, walk away, before this becomes something you can't return from." His eyes softened, trembling. "I can't. I won't lose you again." And then he moved, not toward Karis, but toward her. Karis reacted instantly, stepping forward to block him. Blade, flashing a blast of concussive force, erupted from Jackson's gauntlet, slamming Karis across the chamber with a cry of pain. "Karis!" Alina screamed, rushing toward him, but Jackson caught her wrist. His grip was firm, trembling. "Alina, listen to me. You don't belong here. You're not safe with them. Come with me. We can go now, before the next wave hits. I have an escape route. I can protect you." Tears burned her eyes. "Jackson, I can't abandon you, can't save everyone," he snapped. "But I can save you." She stared into his eyes, broken, furious, hurting, and realized with a sickening ache that Jackson wasn't fighting for peace, or justice, or strategy. He was fighting for her, and that made him more dangerous than any alien. Before she could respond, Karis pushed himself to his feet, blood glowing faintly along a wound across his ribs. "Human," he growled, voice low with fury, "release my mate." Jackson stiffened, eyes darkening. "She's not your mate. The binding says otherwise. The binding is a cage." Jackson shouted. Alina tore her wrist free, stepping back from both of them. "Stop, both of you." But neither stopped, because war was already burning inside them, and she had become the battlefield. Alina felt the air tighten like a living thing between the two men, the space crackling with the kind of tension that came not from war, but from something far more ancient. Two instincts colliding, two loyalties tearing themselves apart around her. Karis struggled to stand fully, the glowing blood along his side pulsing with each heartbeat. Yet his stance remained steady, protective, as if no wound could override the instinct to defend the person he'd been bound to. Jackson, by contrast, looked wild, hollow-eyed, desperation hollowing his strength into something sharp and volatile. Neither would back down, neither would surrender her, and both would tear the universe apart before yielding. Alina realized then, for the first time, that this wasn't simply a political conflict or a battlefield confrontation. It was a collision of destinies, one forged by duty and the other by love, and both were ripping her apart in ways neither man understood. "Stop," she said again, her voice shaking. "Please, you're turning me into a prize, and neither of you is listening." But the words drifted into the charged silence, like sparks vanishing into the void. The Tholkor warriors outside were still fighting. The ship groaned under constant bombardment. The resonance nexus flickered as the living vessel strained under enemy pressure. And inside the chamber, the three of them stood on the brink of tearing apart everything this fragile alliance was meant to protect. Karis wiped glowing blood from his side, straightened himself to his full height, and raised his blade again, not out of aggression, but out of immovable resolve. "Human," he said slowly, "I do not wish to kill you." "Funny," Jackson replied, stepping forward with the predator's grace, "because I won't hesitate." His voice cracked, just barely. "Not when she's at stake." Alina stepped between them before she could second-guess herself, heart hammering, arms outstretched to block both of them. "I'm not something to fight over." Karis froze instantly, his blade lowering several degrees. Jackson froze too, but in a different way. His eyes flickered with shock, pain, and something like betrayal, as if her stepping between them wounded him in a way no weapon could. "Alina," he whispered, voice raw, "I'm doing this for you." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You're doing this because you're hurt, because you can't let go of what happened." Jackson flinched. "I loved you, and I loved you," she whispered, voice breaking. "But loving someone doesn't give you the right to destroy entire civilizations." The words hit him like physical strikes. He staggered back a step, breath-catching. But before the moment could settle, before the stillness could turn into understanding rather than rupture, the Nexus chamber trembled violently as a deeper, darker alarm wailed through the ship, the kind reserved only for cataclysmic breaches. The lights dimmed, flickering as the ship's neural network spasmed under a massive external disruption. Karis spun toward the central node, eyes widening. "They've activated an implosion charge," he said, voice taut. "The Clade forces there trying to collapse the ship's core." Elena's blood went cold. "That will kill everyone on board." "Yes," Karis said grimly, "including us." Jackson cursed under his breath, glancing toward the ruptured doorway. "My team wasn't supposed to deploy that. Someone overrode my commands." Elena stared at him. "You mean, you're not the one leading this assault?" His jaw clenched. "I coordinated the entry routes, the tactical positions. I told them to disable, not destroy. I wanted to get you off the ship, not annihilate it." That revelation struck her harder than any blast outside. Jackson hadn't come to kill, he had come to steal. Steal her away from an alliance he hated. He wasn't the mastermind of this war. He was something far more dangerous, an emotional catalyst who thought he could control a force built on chaos. Karis pressed his palm to the Nexus core, golden light flaring as he attempted to stabilize the ship's neural lattice. "We have minutes," he muttered, "maybe less." His voice tightened. "Elena, I need your help." She blinked. "I don't know anything about your ship, not the ship," he said, turning toward her with an intensity that stole her breath. "Him." Jackson stiffened. "What the hell does that mean?" Karis stepped forward slowly, blade lowered but gaze unyielding. "You did not anticipate this," he said to Jackson. "You care too much about her safety to risk her life. You think in straight lines. Human, you plan for outcomes you can control." Jackson bristled, but didn't argue. Karis continued, "That is why your forces are acting without you. They follow someone else." Elena felt something cold slither down her spine. "Someone worse." Karis nodded. "Someone who used your heartbreak to persuade you. Someone who wanted you as a weapon, not a leader." Jackson's fists clenched. "Who?" The answer came before Karis could speak through the ship's comms, a voice slithering across every frequency with cruel familiarity. "Hello, Elena." Elena's eyes widened in horror. "Commander Hezi." She hadn't heard that voice in years. Haven Protocol, Diplomatic Training Cadet Program. Rez had been the Tholkor liaison to a human cohort, including Elena and Jackson. Once respected, once brilliant, until the truth came out. He believed unity was weakness, believed merging with humans contaminated Tholkor's strength. He had been exiled long before the Clades formed, and now he was back. "Little human diplomat," Rez hissed over comms, his voice like shivering metal. "I see you're still breaking hearts across species." Jackson's face paled with realization. "He played me." "Of course he did," Rez purred. "You humans are so easy to manipulate when grieving." Elena's heart twisted. "Rez, stop this. You'll kill thousands your own people." "They are no longer my people," Rez growled. "Not after they chose submission to Earth. Not after Prince Karis allowed our purity to dissolve into treaties and compromises." His voice darkened. "Karis will die on that ship, and you, human bride, will die beside him." The cum cut with a hiss. Karis exhaled sharply. "We have to disable the implosion charge manually. It's located on the lower spinal corridor." Jackson shook his head violently. "You'll never reach it in time. The Clade fighters flood those levels." Karis lifted his chin. "Then I will by the time needed." "You'll be slaughtered," Jackson snapped. "I am the one they want dead," Karis replied calmly. "They will focus on me." Elena stared at him, horror flooding her chest. "You're walking into a trap." "I know," he said softly, "but if I don't, everyone dies." Jackson stepped forward, jaw tight. "I'm not letting you play the martyr." Karis met his gaze without blinking. "I am not the martyr here. I am the prince, and my duty is to my people." Then he turned to Alan turned, his golden eyes softening with something that looked dangerously like affection. "And to you." Elena's throat tightened, emotion twisting painfully. But before she could speak, Jackson stepped forward. "If anyone disables that charge, it's me." Both she and Karis stared at him. Jackson's voice softened, rough with exhaustion and something deep. "I helped bring the Clades here. You can't risk your lives cleaning up my mistake. I know their patterns, their blind spots. I can get through them faster than either of you." Elena stepped forward, panic rising. "Jackson, if you go down there, you might not come back." He gave her a sad, crooked smile. "Yeah," he murmured, "but this time, losing me might save people instead of destroying them." Karis studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Not approval, not trust, but acknowledgement. You know their routes. I designed half of them. Then you stand a chance, Karis admitted. He stepped back. Go. I will hold the Nexus. Jackson turned toward the exit, but Alina grabbed his arm. For a moment they just stood there, two histories colliding, two hearts still beating in painful rhythm. Jackson, she whispered, don't make this sacrifice because you think it'll undo what happened between us. He held her gaze, pain flickering like a dying star. I'm not doing this to fix us, he said softly. I'm doing it because I finally see who the real enemy is. He exhaled shakily. And it's not him, and it's not you. She felt tears sting her eyes. Then come back. Jackson managed a small, tragic smile. I'll try. And then he was gone, sprinting into the smoke-filled corridor with the fierce determination of a human who had lost everything but the will to do something right. Karis moved to the Nexus controls, wincing but steadying himself. The ship groaned again under enemy fire. Alina moved to his side, helping support him instinctively. He shot her a surprised glance but didn't protest. He still loves you, Karis murmured. Yes, she whispered, and I will always care for him. Karis hesitated, his expression complicated jealousy, understanding, duty, something deeper all tangled together. And me? He asked softly. The question shattered something inside her, not because she had an answer, but because she didn't. She whispered, voice cracking. I don't know. Everything is changing too fast. He bowed his head in acknowledgement. Not hurt, not angry, simply accepting. Then let us survive this, he said quietly, and see what remains when the war fades. Before she could reply, the ship shuddered violently as a massive internal tremor shook the Nexus. San Jackson's voice crackled through an emergency channel, strained and breathless. Alana Karesai found the charge, a beat, then a harsh inhale. And Rez found me. The palace walls trembled as the first human missile struck the outer defense girdle, their shockwaves rolling through the crystalline corridors like the echo of distant thunder. Lyra stood at the highest balcony of the royal citadel, the cold wind whipping her hair back as the sky blistered with streaks of fire. Earth's war machines cutting through Cerathian space like serrated blades. Kale stood beside her, his armor activated, its luminous lines pulsing with battle readiness. His gaze was steady, but she could feel the tension like static between them. They had spent weeks trying to prevent this, sending envoys, messages, pleas, yet Earth's generals would not yield. They believed she had been kidnapped, brainwashed, forced into alien servitude. She had tried to send them the truth, but the military had dismissed her transmissions as coerced propaganda. But worst of all was the man leading the human fleet, Commander Reed Vaughan, the man she once promised a life with, whose heart she shattered the moment she accepted an alien crown. Now he brought a burning sky as vengeance or salvation. Lyra could no longer tell which. The alien capital panicked below them, though Cerathians hid it well under their rigid discipline. Holographic shields flickered, defense cannons oriented toward the heavens, and the soft hum of evacuation transports filled the air. Though Kale had refused to leave, her king did not abandon his people. He had said, a queen would not either, she replied. So now they stood united as the greatest war in known space ignited above their heads. Lyra, Kale said quietly, his voice low with what sounded like regret. When the human flagship breaks orbit, it will fire its planet-breaker rail cannon. Our shields will not withstand it. I must send you to the inner vaults. She cut him off instantly. No, she breathed, turning to him with burning eyes. You are not dying alone. You are not facing him alone. His jaw tightened, the faint bioluminescent ridges along his temples glowing with emotion. He will kill me, Kale said simply. She felt the truth in his tone. She stepped closer, pressing her forehead to his, an intimate gesture among Cerathians, one that always made his breath catch. Then he kills us both. Kale's hand found her waist, gripping it as if she were the last real thing in a crumbling universe. I do not want to die, he murmured, his voice breaking in a way she had never heard. Then live, she said fiercely, pulling away to look him in the eye. Fight for us, but don't send me away, not again. He nodded once, slowly, the acceptance settling into him like a final vow. They moved together to the tactical chamber, their steps echoing through the crystalline hallways as the floor occasionally shook under distant bombardments. Generals stood stiffly at attention, their multi-toned armor humming with power. The room's central hologram showed a three-dimensional map of the incoming human fleet, a massive spear formation, with the flagship Valor's Edge at its tip. Reed's ship, Reed, who once traced lazy patterns on her shoulder while she told him stories of star clusters. Reed, who now commanded the weapon aimed at her new home. "Your Highness," General Everest said, bowing toward Kale. Then respectfully toward Lyra. "The human fleet's fighters have breached Sector 5's airspace. Our patrol wings are overwhelmed. The humans, they are too fast." Sir were stronger, larger, more durable, but humans had always been terrifyingly adaptable, unpredictably clever, and in war they were relentlessness forged into flesh. "Open a channel," Lyra said. The generals exchanged glances, unsure if she meant to speak to their ships or to the humans. Then her voice hardened. "Earthfleet," she clarified. Gasps echoed around the chamber. "My queen," one general whispered urgently, "the humans are the enemy. They will lock on to your signal and do it," Kale ordered, his voice a blade. No one questioned him after that. The hologram flickered as the comlink struggled against jamming signals. Then a face appeared, one she hadn't seen in years. Reed Vaughn looked older, harder. A faint scar now crossed his cheek, and his uniform bore the marks of hard command. His eyes, once warm brown, now burned like dying stars. "Lyra." His voice was emotionless. A statement, not a greeting. She swallowed. "Reed, you don't have to do this." His jaw worked, but he did not soften. "Stand down, Lyra. Return to our ship. We will extract you, debrief you, get you the help you need." Help, as if she were ill, brainwashed, delusional. The palace rumbled as another barrage hit nearby. "I'm not a prisoner," she said, trying to keep her voice from breaking. "I chose this life. I chose Kale." Reed's face tightened, the slightest crack in his steel facade. "He stole you." "No," she whispered. "You lost me." Silence. The generals turned away, suddenly feeling like intruders on a private wound and a public war. Reed's voice came back, lower, shaking with fury. "Then you stand with them." "Yes," she said. He closed his eyes, and for a moment she saw the man he once was. "Then I can't stop what happens next." The screen cut out before she could reply. Moments later, alarms screamed as the flagship's rail cannon began to charge. The energy spike was unmistakably a sun being forced into a weapons chamber. Kale turned to her, and there was no fear in his expression now, only a terrible calm. "We hold the palace," he said, "even if the sky falls." She nodded and reached for his hand. Together, they ran into the heart of the citadel, the doors sealing behind them as Sarathian warriors formed defensive lines. Lyra's breath came fast. She wasn't a trained soldier, but she had learned enough since the wedding to defend herself. Kale tossed her a plasma glaver weapon that shimmered with neon edges. "Stay behind me," he said, activating his own war spear. She smirked despite the chaos. Not a chance. The first wave of human breaches landed like thunder, their drop pods slamming into the palace courtyard and bursting open with soldiers in exosuits, sleek, angular, terrifying. They moved like storms contained in metal. Sarathians were larger but fewer. Humans were smaller but faster. The clash was instant and brutal. Kale struck down two soldiers with sweeping arcs of crackling energy, while Lyra darted in behind him, disabling suits with quick, precise hits. Explosions shook the walls. Somewhere a Sarathian screamed. Somewhere a human did. War had no favorites. The palace doors shuddered again, then exploded inward as a massive mech forced its way in, towering over the battlefield with twin cannons rotating toward them. Kale grabbed Lyra and pushed her behind a fallen pillar as the cannons fired, turning crystal architecture into molten shards. "We need to take out its core," she shouted over the roar. "I'll distract it," Kale answered, already moving. "You hit the rear panel." Before she could argue, he sprinted toward the mech, ducking beneath a blast that vaporized the ground where he had been a moment earlier. He leapt onto a collapsed beam and launched himself onto the mech's arm, stabbing his spear into its joint to disable its primary cannon. Sparks rained like hot stars. Lyra dashed behind the machine, searching for the glowing coolant lines along its back. She spotted them, 3 ribbons of blue light. One strike, one chance. She plunged the glaive into the lines. The mech's lights flickering wildly, then collapsed with a metal groan that shook the battle into momentary silence. Kale landed beside her, breathless. "You continue to disobey me in ways that make me grateful," he said, voice rough. "Good," she shot back. But then the ground rattled again, and this time it wasn't from battle. The sky rippled. A shadow blotted out the sun as the flagship broke through the clouds, descending far lower than any capital ship should. Reed was bringing the cannon to point-blank range. It wouldn't just break the shield, it would crack the planet. Lyra's breath froze. "He'll kill everyone," she whispered. "Even me." Cale looked up, jaw clenched. "You said humans fight hardest for what they love," he said. Perhaps he loved you too much, but she knew this wasn't love. Now it was a wound turned to war. Reed's face haunted her. The man who once vowed to cross galaxies for her now came as their executioner. Then her comlink chimed. She hesitated before answering. Reed appeared again, sweat on his brow, fury and desperation warring in his eyes. "Lyra, please," he said, voice strained. "Just surrender now. I can still order a ceasefire." "Don't make me." Reed, she interrupted, stepping forward despite the collapsing palace around her. "Listen to me. I'm alive. I'm safe. I'm loved. You're fighting for a memory that doesn't exist anymore." His breath hitched. "I loved you," he said, voice breaking. A rumble shook the world, the cannon finishing its charge. "And I loved you once," she replied softly, "but that life is gone. Let go before you destroy what's left of yourself." For a long, agonizing moment, Reed said nothing. Then a distant voice on his bridge shouted, "Sir, the cannon is at full charge awaiting your command." Reed closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had changed, not softness, but clarity. "Goodbye, Lyra," he said. "I release you." The connection cut. The cannon fired. A beam of sun-white energy lanced toward the palace, but in the split second before it hit, the Sarathian planetary shield surged upward, tripling in strength, bursting into a dome of light like a rising supernova. Cale stared in shock. That was impossible. "No," Lyra whispered, her heart pounding. "That was red." On the flagship bridge, Reed had overridden the targeting system at the last instant, redirecting the cannon to strike the outer shield rather than the planet's crust. A non-lethal shot, a warning blast, a surrender of the battle he could have won. The beam fizzled harmlessly across the shield's surface like a dying comet. Then human ships began peeling away, retreating into the upper atmosphere, one by one, until all that was left was the flagship, hovering like a silent apology. Then even it turned, engines igniting as it jumped to warp, leaving behind the war. And the woman Red finally let himself loose. Lyra stood trembling, tears tracking through the dust on her face. She felt Cale's arms wrap around her from behind, strong and shaking with exhaustion. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "Because you reached him." "No," she said softly. "Because he chose peace in the one moment that mattered." Cale turned her toward him, lifting her chin gently. "Then we will honor that mercy, and rebuild what remains." She nodded, leaning into him as the palace lights flickered back on, the sounds of battle fading into quiet. She had been forced to marry an alien prince. She had rejected a human man who loved her, and in the end, both men had shaped the fate of two worlds, but only one still stood beside her. Cale kissed her forehead, then her lips, then held her as the sun broke through the smoke-filled sky. "We live," he said, "together." And for the first time since the war began, Lyra believed him.